The views and opinions expressed on Where Did the Road Go belong to the person speaking them. They do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of other people on the show or the show as a whole. This month's Where Did the Road Go is sponsored by the following awesome individuals: Greg Ross, Allison Cook, Super Inframan, 36 Dingo, and Michael Friske. Thank you so much for helping make this show possible.
Transmission start. Welcome to Where Did the Road Go? Join us as we wander off the path and explore lost history, consciousness, the paranormal, unexplained mysteries, alternative thought, and much more. We are present on the web at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Now here is your host, Seriah.
Welcome to this edition of Where Did the Road Go? And tonight I have with me Brennan Store.
Hello.
That was the correct response.
Yes, I had a hand. ChatGPT gave me a range of options. I picked the one that sounded the least serial killery.
All right, good work. Good use of ChatGPT.
And I should say, because one of your fabulous listeners found my show and said, "Hey, you don't tell us that you have your own show enough," because I didn't know until recently. I'm the host of the Ghost Story Guys podcast. You can find us everywhere you stream your podcasts. That's the Ghost Story Guys. And I also do the horror fiction show Fear Daily. If you want to get your scary on, especially for Halloween, you get 2 horror stories every day, Monday to Friday. And some of them I've written. Not all of them anymore, but some of them.
But you don't read those, you just write them.
Yes.
Okay. And you do Ghost Story Guys. What kind of subjects do you cover there?
Pretty much anything Fortean.
Really?
Every show
is
this different. What's up?
I was joking. I assumed it was
You're
Ghost
screwing
Stories.
with me. That's the autism answered for me, sir. I can't help you, man. You ask me a question, I'm going to answer. This is a bone deep fault of mine.
That's fine. It's not a fault. No, but so you do cover everything on there.
Yeah. First person stories, pretty much anything that seems relatively believable. Paul, of course, my co-host, also hosts Mysteries and Monsters, and so he's the fount of paranormal information. So if I don't know something, he does.
Nice.
And yeah, we've covered some really fascinating stuff, some of which we've shared on the show. But yeah, we're doing our Halloween extravaganza at the moment. So we've got a bunch of listener stories from all over the world, including this kind of generational haunting in India that's very unusual.
Okay. Well, people can check that out, I assume, wherever they can get podcasts.
Yes, sir.
All right. And you also have a book. You should mention that, too, in case people don't know.
Oh, yeah. So I wrote A Strange Little Place, The Paranormal Secrets of Revelstoke, British Columbia. And that is a collection of the haunted history of my small hometown in the Canadian Rockies. Going back 100 years. UFOs, shadow people, Bigfoot sightings, lake monsters. It is, in fact, a strange little place.
And you don't live there now?
No. I currently live in London, Ontario, which is about 2 hours outside of Toronto, about halfway between Toronto and Detroit. Although okay. I also live part-time in Victoria, BC as well. I live beyond my means, and I go back and forth. Okay, all right. Is there anything else you do that people you read an audiobook? Yeah, I've read a few audiobooks. I've done my own book, both versions of my own book. I read the first edition of Ian Gibbs's Victoria's Most Haunted, although I don't imagine he's too excited about that. I read, currently I'm working on Barbara Smith's, no, that's not right, Ruth Roper Wild's These Haunted Times series. So These Haunted Times Volume 5 is the one that's out right now, and I am currently in the process of recording both Volume 1 and the latest volume, Volume 6, which is coming out soon. So why would the guy not be happy about you doing his book? Oh, Ian was my first co-host. It didn't end well between us. Oh, so why are you doing his book? Yeah. I'd already done it. Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, I think just finished it, so it's still out there to listen to, and I'm proud of the work I did. It's a solid book, but yeah, that was just me being silly. Okay, all right. Excellent. So yes, there's the large list of things you do. Yes, I mean we also have the Ghost Story Guys record label, Night Harvest Recordings. You can listen to a number of our favorite artists there at nightharvestrecordings.com or anywhere you stream your music. And I did not know about this. Oh yeah, I've been doing that for about 5 years now. I started with Pizzanta Music, who made our music for the show. He's this Russian dude. I met him through Instagram, and I taught him how to use this camera. He made music for me, and as a thank you, I took all his music from SoundCloud. He makes these really great hip hop beats, and I put him on put him on a label so people could listen to him everywhere, and it kind of grew from there.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I don't know how that's either I've completely forgotten that, or that's never come up before.
It probably hasn't come up because it's not really kind of germane to the stuff we talk about on the show. But but yeah, no, one of our artists, the Revenants, he's this dude I met through doing Ghost Story Guys. And he just started composing music again in his late 60s after being away from it for almost 40 years. And I think he's done close to 200 albums.
Wow.
And I mean, sure, they're not all great, but some of them are really, really good. And bizarrely, he caught on somewhere, I want to say in Southeast Asia. And so we've had 120 million streams of his stuff on various social media platforms, all from like Indonesia. I can't remember the other countries, but yeah, bizarre. And of course, we've made, I think he's made like, I don't know, $1,000 from it over the course of 5 years, but yeah, caught on. And I think it was actually featured in a Chinese TV show, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Yeah, we never got paid for it, but we're pretty sure it turned up in the Chinese TV show.
I'm trying to think, what's the band that has 1 million albums? Is it King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard? Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
King Gizzard has 27 albums out, 63 live albums, 5 compilation albums.
Holy man.
And they've only been around, I want to say 10 years or so. Let's see. When did they actually start? Maybe I'm wrong. They started in, 2012.
I'll be.
So 27 studio albums since 2012. So about just under 15 years.
Holy man. Well, Elliot's still got him beat from the Revenants, but I have to imagine, well, I don't know. I was going to say their stuff is more consistent, but I'm not sure. He's done such a range of stuff, from like classic rock to country to sort of Irish to he did a couple of electronic albums.
They're more psychedelic rock.
Okay.
I generally like their stuff. Obviously, I don't like all of it because it's rare I like everything from a band. But most of the stuff I've played it on Last Exit plenty of times because they just keep popping new records out. It's like, oh, another new King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, which is fun to say.
Can't argue with that.
So, we were talking briefly, and I don't think we've talked about it on the show before, and I don't remember if you've even told me the story, but you got a voice in one of your Ghost Story Guys podcasts.
Oh, so yeah, so that was, I mean, we've had voices. The voices are actually quite a long time ago, but if you listen to one of our old catalog shows, funny, I mentioned Ian earlier, actually, because it was on an episode with him. I think he had just been diagnosed with a particular medical condition. We were talking about it on the show. He was describing it to me. And you can hear in the recording what sounds like a high-pitched voice, possibly a woman, breaks in and goes, "That's right." And it's plainly audible, but there's no obvious source up from it. You know, like there's no one else in the room with us.
Yeah.
That set was not known to pick up noise from other places. And if it was just random interference, it was perfectly timed.
Right.
And then because I used to do a radio show on Stoke FM out of Revelstoke. And I would pre-record it kind of like Last Exit and then just upload it to the server. And I was reviewing the recording at one time, just kind of getting it ready for export. And I said something, and again, a voice pops on and says, "Hello." And it was, very, very strange stuff. But no, the thing I mentioned to you off air was actually something visual. And unfortunately, we didn't capture it because we'd stopped recording by the time it happened. But we had been recording the show, this is about maybe 3 weeks ago. And Paul, we were just shooting the breeze about what we're going to do on the weekend. And Paul looked up from his phone and said to me, "Oh, who's over?" As in, who's over at your house? And of course, I live by myself here in Ontario, and I don't have people over, especially when I record. So I told him that. And he said, "Well, I just saw a woman in a white dress walk from one side behind you to the other." And I didn't feel anything. I didn't hear anything. I mean, I live on the 6th floor. So, I mean, there is a door where that person was walking towards, but it's a door that goes out to the 6th floor balcony. And, it makes noise when you open it. If you open it, it would be plainly visible in the camera, but there was no one there.
Was there anything weird going on in your life at the time?
I mean, my life's perpetually weird.
That's what I figured.
But nothing that I think warrants, like, nothing that jumps out at me. I mean, like, my life is, it's a little weird, but it's not actually interesting weird. So nothing I can think of. It just was this weird little moment. It kind of actually reminded me of a long time ago. One of my friends was cleaning houses on Vancouver Island, and they were cleaning this one house. It was out in the country a little bit, nice big house. And one day, the whole house was empty. They were cleaning, they had headphones in. And then as they were cleaning this giant mirror, they looked up and they kind of startled because there was an older woman standing just behind them. And so my friend, who thought she had been alone in the house, she took out her headphones and turned around to apologize to this woman. But instead of a woman, there was what looked like the shape of a woman out of frosted glass.
Oh.
And the longer she looked at it, the more it dissipated and just disappeared. But my friend is extraordinarily sensitive to psychic phenomena. She's had a number of other experiences. We've had experiences together. She felt nothing the entire time. There was no, hair going up on the back of your neck, nothing like that. It was just this, there's a woman. Oh, wait, that's not a woman. What is that? And then it was over.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. I just realized I had something really weird happen that kind of creeped me out a little bit because I had no idea what to make of it. And I don't think it's the first time it's happened, but this was happening multiple times, and it was kind of going, all right, what's going on? So I'm laying in bed. I'm trying to sleep. I don't know if the first time I had fallen asleep or not, but I heard my phone bing. And I always keep my phone on Do Not Disturb. So
Right.
if my phone bings, it's generally only like one of three people, and it's probably an emergency. So I'm like, all right, did I not turn on Do Not Disturb? Maybe this could be something bad, and like I pick up the phone, there's nothing there. And I'm like, what?
Oh.
And it's on Do Not Disturb. Okay, well, that's weird. Maybe I imagined it. So I put the phone back down, and I'm laying there. I'm not asleep. And the phone makes a tone that I've never heard it make.
Oh.
And I'm like, what? And again, I pick up the phone and there's nothing. And I'm like, all right, that was weird. I put the phone back down. I try to go back to sleep. And I think I was just getting to the point my brain was slowing down where I could go back to sleep. And it made a noise that I don't know how to describe it. It's like almost like a crowd. And then the crowd is kind of dying down.
Oh, dude.
So it's like whoosh. And then it's like whoosh. And I was like, okay, I'm awake. What the hell was that? And, I pick up the phone. The phone's just like it should be. And I'm like, there's no noise on my phone that can do that. I'm assuming it came from the phone just because it came from that direction. But I have no idea. And then I started actually getting a little creeped out. I'm like, what is going on? Like, where is this coming from? What is this? And I actually said out loud, I'm like, if you do that one more time, I'm going to go get the recorder from the other room and turn it on and just leave it. And it didn't happen again.
Well, what's really interesting about that is like what the sound you're describing of the busy room. That was one of my first paranormal experiences in the very first apartment I lived in.
I wouldn't say like a busy room. It was like a crowd cheering.
Oh, okay.
Like that's the best way I can describe it. Like a big crowd cheering, and then it kind of fades down. But I want to hear about your experience now.
Well, it was really very quick. It was the beginning of my strange experiences in the first apartment I lived in. If you read my book, A Strange Little Place, it's the chapter called Botchies. My family ran the store, and I rented the apartment upstairs. And I moved in there. It was my first apartment after leaving home. It was huge. I had originally meant to live in it with a buddy of mine who was going to be a roommate, and then he dropped out, so it was just me in this colossal apartment. And back then, rent was cheap in a small town.
Right.
And at first, I loved it. There was so much space. I would sleep on my bed, on top of my bed, with the door wide open, with music playing in the next room. And then over time, I got less and less comfortable having all the lights on and like sleeping with the door open. And then over time, I got less comfortable sleeping with the door unlocked. And then and that's just the bedroom door, I mean. And then I got less comfortable. I was uncomfortable with there being music playing in the next room. Okay. And I just really, it was very strange. And then one night I was laying in bed after a busy day at work, and I got a little bit of tinnitus, so I kind of laying there just sort of letting the noise die down. But instead of dying down, it ramped up, and I was hearing what sounded like a dinner party happening in the kitchen, which was next door to the bedroom. And like it started as almost like a rumbling. And I thought because I lived near a train yard, I grew up near a train yard. So I thought it was maybe a train coming through. But like I said, instead of kind of being rattling of dishes in a cupboard, it was like the clinking of glasses and silverware on a dinner table.
Oh, interesting.
And I just lay there, and I was frankly terrified, and because I'm a giant coward. And I just went to sleep. But what's really interesting about yours is that it unnerved you, because that is so uncommon.
Yes. Yeah. It kind of bothered me that it unnerved me. I'm like, okay. And then I went to sleep. After saying, I'll go get the recorder if you do that again, I went to sleep and I was fine.
After having established dominance, Seriah returned to slumber.
We don't want you recording this stuff. What the hell? Because I figured one of two things is happening. Either that's in my head or it's in the room. So if I put a recorder out and I hear a noise and it's not on the recorder, then it was in my head. And it's not like Kundalini can't cause sounds and things like that in your head. It just generally doesn't happen to me anymore, since that was like something that was common when it was waking up. Or sometimes
Right.
if it rushes, if I get it to usually with meditation, if I get it to really spike up, it will give me a like a white noise sort of sound in my ears.
Oh, fascinating.
And it's like, and I'll feel very lightheaded, and like it'll just like I could still hear fine, but there's just this constant like shh for a little bit.
Oh, wow. Well, I know when a few years ago now, my wife and I were hanging out in the living room, and all of a sudden this electronic sound came from the corner of the room. I had forgotten about this until you mentioned it. But yeah, it was, we went over there, like we both looked at each other and said, what was that? It was almost like an alarm, but not quite, kind of like a chime maybe.
Yeah.
But we both got up, went over to that corner. There was nothing electronic there whatsoever. There was, and not only that, the wall that on the other side of that wall is just our bedroom. So it's not like it was coming from a neighbor's place. But it was this bizarre, kind of weird electronic chime.
I have had that happen before.
Oh, really?
And not be able to trace what it was. The one time I was able to trace what it was is one of my co-hosts left her cell phone at the radio station. And so as I was cleaning up at the end of the night, I'm like, oh, she left her phone here. I can't call her to tell her she left her phone here. So I assume she'll get a hold of me. And so I brought it home with me, not thinking, oh, it's still on, So it was in a bag in the room next to my bedroom, and I'm hearing this thing, like these tones. I'm like, what is that? And I'm like, it's probably nothing. And then I'm like hearing it again. I'm like, what? And I walk into the other room. I'm like, oh, it's her freaking cell phone. Like someone was trying to call her. So what I wrote down, this was October 18th, this happened. And I said, I did this with voice to text. Phone occasionally, you're making a noise. And it's not always the sound it can make. It's done it at least 3 times now since I laid down around 7:30 a.m. It's now 9 a.m. It says I do not disturb, obviously meant to be in do not disturb mode. And this last sound was like a crowd dying out. I have absolutely no idea what's going on.
Huh.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Also, he had a videotape flip off one of the speakers in the studio here.
I mean, I feel like you were kind of buried the lead there. By the way, poltergeists.
Well, this stuff happens a lot. But this one I got on camera. So, it wasn't on the edge of the speaker, but maybe a fourth of it, the videotape was hanging off the edge of the speaker. And there's no vibration, there's no nothing. The thing just flips up to the air and falls on the floor. And I'm like, I come into the studio and I'm like, why is that on the floor? And so I start scrolling the cameras back. I'm like, oh yeah, it fell off the speaker. Wait a minute. What would have caused it to fall off the speaker? Most of it's on the speaker. Like, it's not like it was half and half or something like that. And I have it on 3 different cameras doing it. So I'll put that up at some point.
I was going to say, yeah, I'd love to see that.
I mean, other times things have fallen and I'm like in my back library, I'll find something on the floor and I'm going, where did you come from? All right, cameras. And I only have one camera in that room and I'm scrolling back. Okay, it's still on the floor, not on the floor. Okay. I precariously balanced that on top of a high bunch of things. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. That's me, fair. But this I don't know. And Natalie gets stuff like that fairly regularly where she has little poltergeist stuff happen.
Interesting.
So, because actually when this happened, she goes, oh, good, the poltergeist went to you.
Yeah, give me a night off. Speaking of Natalie, I don't think I told you this. The night you had your pill thing that happened when you aspirated your medication.
Oh, yeah, when I almost died, yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't know this had happened, of course, but I dreamed about you and Natalie having a conversation and something was wrong. And you were in a white room or a room with white wall, with at least one white wall, and there was a curtain on, it was almost like I was on the other side of a wall or a curtain from you. And so I couldn't see you, but I could hear you two talking and something was wrong. But I don't remember the context of the conversation. I just remember being on the opposite side of this wall from you guys. And I remember thinking, I wonder what's up. And it almost looked like a hospital room. That's kind of what it looked like. Like that was my interpretation of it. But it was like something was serious. Something had happened and something was happening. And then when you posted about what had happened, it's like, oh, that was the same night I had that dream.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was odd. So I apologize for, astrally eavesdropping on you. I don't remember anything, if that helps.
Well, I mean, maybe you picked up information, like I was distressed because I could barely breathe. She was obviously concerned. She just happened to be in the kitchen. Otherwise, she wouldn't even have known.
Kitchen. That could have been a kitchen.
So, because I didn't start coughing in the kitchen, I was way in the back of the house. Because she basically lives upstairs, but we have to share the kitchen because the upstairs has a bathroom. It has a number of bedrooms, a closet, things like that. But the kitchen is shared. And I'm in the back of the house, which is like the newer part of the house that does not have a second floor to it. So we are as far on opposite ends of the house as can be.
Right.
The thing that always unnerved me when I lived here just by myself is like the whole other side of the house could fall down and I wouldn't know. Like it's that far away because it's a big old farmhouse, you know?
Right.
And it's like she had, I think I talked about the bees on here.
Yeah, you did.
I did? Okay. And when she messaged and said, you know, we have a serious problem, I'm thinking, oh, what happened? Did a window fall out? Because there's some rotted windows I'm trying to get fixed and can't afford to. And I'm like, oh, don't tell me one of the windows fell out, you know, or something like that, or the porch collapsed or so, you know, and then it's like, there are bees. I'm like, oh, that's it? Okay, I'm good with that. I came up with much worse things.
Yeah, that's when you're a homeowner, man, your catastrophe meter just changes.
That's true. Did a pipe burst? Did the window fall out? Did the porch collapse? Did a tree fall and hit the house?
Yeah. I sold my house in 2017 back in Revelstoke, and I think for 2 or 3 years afterwards, I still had nightmares about serious repairs that needed to be done, like major structural faults, stuff like that. And it took a while for that to like work its way out of my psyche.
I mean, I don't tend to have dreams about it, luckily. But yeah, there's things that really need to be done that I can't afford to do. I'm hoping eventually to get some help from the state, but we'll see how that goes.
Provided there's a state left.
That's true. That is also true. But it made me think of this other weird thing that happened. I had lost... Okay, so a tree fell, and this was pre-2018 because my mom was still alive. A tree fell, didn't do any damage, but it was laying kind of in the way of where they bring the propane in, and had a whole thing with the propane company. So there's 2 ways they can bring the propane in, and when the tank was put in, it was put in before the extension in the back was built. So it used to be fairly easy to get to, but then they built the extension, and now they have to go all the way around to get to it. So sometimes they come in from the road, depending if it's too muddy or whatever. And so I had been talking to, they asked if they could move the tank. And I said, yeah, you can move the tank. I don't care. And they went over locations. And then they tell me I have to pay $500 so they can move the tank for their convenience. And I was like, are you serious? I'm not paying for you to make it easier for you. So then they're like, well, you have to get rid of that tree then that fell down. I'm like, okay. So I get a chainsaw, I'm chopping up the tree, I'm getting rid of all of it because they didn't think I was going to do it. They were like, you know, oh, you're not going to be able to clear all that out. I'm like, yeah, I am. So I spent an entire... Huh?
You fools, telling you there's something you can't do. Give me a break.
This was sort of like, you know, I have no idea how long I would have left that until it needed to be done. And once it needed to be done, it's like, okay, well, then I'm going to do it and just get rid of it. So I'm clearing it out, and I had this big, 6-foot long iron pry bar because when the tree hit, it dug itself into the ground in certain areas. It was an old oak tree. And so I had to use the pry bar to get some of it up. Plus, it had been there for like a few months, so the grass had overgrown it and stuff. And when I'm finishing up, I got a last bit of stuff I had to collect. The whole area is clear. I take the pry bar, and I put it on top of the cart that's attached to my lawnmower/tractor, and I take it way out back of the property. And when I get back out there, the pry bar is gone. And I'm like, oh, must have fallen off while I was, driving into the back. I never found that pry bar again. It's a 6-foot iron pry bar.
Interesting. Man, something really wanted that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, okay, I went through the whole area, first on the tractor and then by hand, or on foot, and just walked up because I know exactly where I went with it. I'm like, it is not here. And I have mowed the lawn, I mean, who knows how many times since then. I have never found that pry bar.
Man, and what's crazy too is the fact that it's iron.
Yeah.
I mean, that sort of rules out, certain suspects we might have had.
Right. Maybe not, though. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like when I used to work for the consulting company, years and years ago, the office, the whole building was deeply, deeply haunted. And I bought magnetite, I think it was. It was sort of the highest iron content rocks I could find. And I put them above my door, the door to my office, the door to the main office, and it seemed to act as a repellent.
Yeah. I mean, I did think it was weird that it was iron, but also I have no explanation as to where it went.
No, it seemed. I say it seems like something took it. It just that maybe the iron content rules out, against certain things we might have suggested, but not everything, obviously.
Yeah, I mean that has to be one of the weirdest I don't know where this went stories I have. I mean, if I lose something in the house, that's one thing. But a giant 6-foot iron pry bar that only went from point A to point B, that obviously must have dematerialized at some point.
To me, that seems like a message. That's such an obvious thing to go missing. That seems like something intentional. I don't know what the message would be, of course, but yeah. It just seems to me like you're going to let a 6-foot pry bar, you're going to take that, that's going to be missed.
And I resisted going to buy another one because I'm like, no, I got to be able to find it. Has to be somewhere. And I thought, well, it was gone when I got back to the brush, the burning pile, I think. I'm like, maybe it wasn't. Maybe I threw it in the burning pile. Well, the burning pile burned all the way down, and then I went through that and no pry bar. I'm like, okay, not in the burning pile because it wouldn't have melted. It's, it's thick iron. It would have got really hot, but that's about it.
Yeah, that, like I said, that says to me someone was trying to get your attention or was trying to make a point.
Or just be a pest.
Well, or that.
So eventually I was like, okay, fine, I'll buy another pry bar.
This is how the pry bar industry makes its money.
Because there have been what did I do? This was dumb on my part. I have a hedge trimmer and I could not find the battery for it. I'm like, oh my God, where's the battery? I need the battery. I don't know what I did with it. It's just gone. I have the charger, no battery. So I buy another battery. The battery shows up. I look at the battery and go, oh, the thing I thought was the charger with the battery on it.
Oh no.
It just looked like you would plug the battery into it because it connected different. It didn't connect into the charger like it connected into the hedge trimmer.
Right.
So when you look at it, it looks like you would plug a battery into it. And I'm like, so I'm dumb. All right. But now I have 2 batteries.
There you go. There's worse things.
And it was only like $10. So it wasn't a huge deal. I was just frustrated that I couldn't find the battery. There are also the times when things really disappear. And then you get a replacement, and suddenly the thing you were looking for is sitting right there, and you're like, "Okay, really?"
Oh yeah.
Like I did not overlook this.
There was a house in Revelstoke that was actually one of the first ghost stories I found. Was this old house where things would just go missing. It would just disappear, and sometimes you'd replace it, it would turn, and then it would turn up again, or sometimes you'd be just about to get to the point where you were, PO'd enough, you're gonna buy a new one, and it would just pop up. And I remember the fellow who told me he was a young man when he lived there, and it would be records. His buddies would bring over records, and they'd all of a sudden just vanish, and they'd start to get worked up, and he would tell them, just give it a week, maybe even less, it'll be back. And invariably, it would come back.
I've had a couple of records disappear, but they're records I know I brought to the radio station at one point. So there is at least a slim chance I left them there without realizing it. Like they got knocked over the edge of something or whatever. Like I had the original Dream Warriors single from Dokken on a 45.
Oh, nice.
And I know I brought it in and played it, but at some point I went to look for it and it was just gone. And I'm like, did I lose it at the radio station? Like, it's the only thing that makes sense because it's not here. All my records are in one place, but there are other records I know I owned and they just don't exist anymore. Or, I'll go through my whole record collection and I'll be like, it's not here. How is it not here? And then I'll look through like a month later looking for something else, and there it is. And I'm like, what? No, I went through 2 or 3 times and you weren't there. And again,
Men in Black really like your taste in music.
Or is it just my brain not picking up on it? Like I'm going through the motion and my brain is more distracted than I realize,
That's the more realistic possibility, but I like mine better.
This happened with a CD. So there was this band, local band, King Snyder, who also the main guy was also in Shovel Barn. His name was Brad, and he had cerebral palsy, and he was the vocalist of both of these bands. And he'd get up on stage and he'd thrash around. He'd be spinning in his wheelchair and stuff, and they were good bands. And about within the last month, he passed away from complications from the cerebral palsy. He did make it into his mid-50s, though. And I was like, okay, well, I have some of the King Snyder stuff on my computer, but I don't have the Shovel Barn CD. that was at the radio station, which I brought all the stuff back from the radio station since we don't generally do live shows anymore. But people would request it all the time, so I left the CD there. And so I'm like, all right, it's in one of these like 18 piles. And so I'm like, and I need to find it because I want to play stuff. I want to do a tribute set to him. And so I'm digging through the stuff and I go through all the CDs. It's not there. I'm like, okay, I know it's here. I'm just going to have to go through them all again. So I go back to the first pile I went through and there it is. And I'm like, cool, brain. Good job. It was literally in the first place I looked and I missed it.
Oh, but yeah, that's always a pain in the ass.
Because I don't believe it wasn't there. I think my brain just glossed over it.
More than likely. Yeah, I mean, I've done that many times. My wife, Nick, she always calls it man looking. And we both do it. You know, we can't find something and the other will say, did you look or did your man look? And she, as I say, she's just as bad for it as I am. And then we'll stop and then you'll hear, it'll either be me or you'll hear this little English voice come from the kitchen. I man looked, I found it. And again, I'm just as bad.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, it happens. I mean, that's the whole invisible gorilla thing, you know? Our perception isn't what we think it is.
That was such a great episode. I was glad you guys finally did that. I really dug that one.
I still have not reached out to those guys, but I do want to. Even if they turn me down, whatever, you know?
Oh, yeah, better to have asked and have them turn you down than nothing else.
Yeah,
than just kind of like not knowing.
I'm just horrible at communicating and setting things up.
You and me both, my friend. You and me both. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the technology thing, the thing we were talking about earlier, reminded me of something. I've been trying to jar it loose from my brain, and I just found it. So this is actually a story from here in London, Ontario. Do you mind if I share it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I found this. I did for my patrons, for Ghost Story Guys, I did a show called The Ghosts of London, Ontario. So it's not really enough to do a full Ghost Story Guys episode, but, you know, sort of like a 45-minute patron thing is fine. And so this is from a website that is now gone. It was called Doty Docs, and it was done by a guy, I can't remember his first name, but his last name was Doty, D-O-T-Y, Christopher Doty. He says, in October 2004, Rogers Television was on location at the University of Western Ontario, shooting a segment for its popular primetime show, University Night at the Drink. The crew consisted of a camera operator and a correspondent named Michelle. The subject of the shoot was a sociology student from Oakville named Jillian. Less than 2 minutes into the interview, Michelle asked Jillian what was the greatest film of all time. I like to think Goonies, because it's all about adventure, she said. A few days later, an editor was assembling the raw footage when she noticed something odd about the clip. There was a third female voice on the audio track whispering, Shelley, Shelley, Shelley. Perturbed, she went back to the original field tape, only to find the voice was embedded on both tracks of audio and was not a glitch in the editing equipment. Word about the voice circulated through the building until it reached Michelle. She started when she heard the news. As a child, she had been called Shelley by close family members, but no one involved with the show other than herself knew that. The associate producer of the show leaked the story to local media, and on the night the segment aired, viewership and website hits related to the program went through the roof. This writer, Christopher Doty, had an opportunity to inspect the field tape with the cameraman who shot it. The audio quality makes it clear it is not a person whispering off camera. The interview had been recorded by a microphone wired into the camera in order to eliminate any atmospheric interference, and yet the repetition of Shelley, Shelley, Shelley was picked up by both the interviewee's lavalier and the camera mic. The shooter also dismissed, the shooter of course being the camera operator, dismissed the possibility the voice had bled through from a segment that had been recorded over. So there is no explanation for it, but this was something that was recorded on tape in 2004.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that counts as an EVP. It's weird that it's on 2 of the tapes.
Yeah, and which is odd because like when we had ours at the office when we were recording Ghost Story Guys in the early days, the one time it popped up, it was only on, I think it was only on his mic, so it had to have come from his side of the table, but we were in the same room and it didn't register on mine.
So weird.
Yeah,
EVPs are interesting because I mean, there's so many possibilities of what's going on. I know people have said you can take most of the microphone out of it, so it doesn't actually record sounds in the room and they can still get EVPs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I find that really compelling compared to you just kind of like intentionally recording as much room noise as possible and trying to see what turns up.
Right. Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And I never had the patience to sit there and go through that stuff. The one EVP I ever got is not because I was trying to get EVPs or listening back even to what I recorded because, okay, this is something that I noticed working on my book. And also I should say, Brennan is proof the book exists.
Yes, Brennan is slowly working his way through. I'm helping out with some editing. I can vouch for its existence. It is big and it is beautiful.
I hope you say that by the end.
I have no doubt.
But I noticed that shooting stars tend to set off things with me. So there's at least one, maybe two accounts in that book where I'm with someone, we see a shooting star, and they just open up to me.
Oh, interesting.
And I realized that the one EVP I got also was right after a shooting star. So I was living here alone before Natalie moved in. So I'm in the middle of nowhere. It's like 2:00 in the morning. I walk out to get the mail because I realize I haven't gotten the mail. And I get the mail and I look up and I'm like, man, it's a really nice night out. Maybe I should stay out for a bit. And I said, and I kind of asked the universe, should I stay out for a bit? And I looked up and immediately there was a shooting star. And I went, okay, cool. And it was middle of summer. So there's all these insect noises. And I'm like, I'm going to record these insect noises in case I want them for a backdrop or something like that. So I have my phone and I'm walking around recording the insect noises in different parts of the yard because they're different wherever you go in the yard. And I'm standing right in front of my big barn and I'm recording it. And then I go to walk and it's pitch black out and I'm walking around in the complete darkness. And I walk around the side of the barn to go to the back of it and something screams. Oh. And of course, initially I'm startled and kind of on guard. And then I'm like, no, that was a fox. But I'm going to turn on my light and before I go any further in case, the fox is protecting something. And I didn't see anything. And I went and sat at the bench I have behind the barn and recorded again. Well, it was recording from the point where it screamed, actually. Or did no. Oh, no, I stopped it when it screamed because I had to stop it to turn on the light. And then I went and sat, recorded again. Never listened back to it. A friend of mine from that does the Metallic Onslaught said to me when I was telling about the scream, he goes, would you go back and listen? I'm like, no. He's like, well, maybe you should go back and listen and see what it sounds like. And I'm like, you're right. I should go back and listen. I'm listening for this scream and I'm not finding it. So I'm like, well, all right, maybe I just need to turn it up louder. Maybe it wasn't as loud as it seemed. So I crank, everything up and I'm hearing these insect noises and stuff. And I go to the one, I don't remember if I think maybe I listened to the one I thought it was on and I didn't hear it. And I went to the one before it. And at the end, I have this EVP. And if I think of it, if I remember, I'm going to leave myself a note right here. I will put that EVP in the show right here. And the funny thing about it is I've heard that voice before when I'm trying to go to sleep. Oh. Where I'm like getting into that almost asleep state and I'll hear this. And I'm like, what is that? I can't even make out anything from that. But it's a very distinct male voice. And basically I recorded it. And I wouldn't have known if I hadn't cranked it up looking for that scream. Turns out the scream got muffled because I must have hit the mic on the camera, or not on the camera, on the phone. Okay. I was using the camera on the phone. I wasn't using an audio recorder. So when you do that, it kind of lowers the gain. Of course, right. So once I, listened again, I'm like, okay, that was weird and kind of creepy. And then I'm like, oh, there's the scream. It's just really low because you can hear me hit the mic right before it. And I'm like, okay, this was a series of events that had to take a very specific path for me to find this EVP. Yeah. If I found the scream, I would never have looked any further. I would have been like, yeah, that sounds like a fox. And it did sound like a fox. And we have fox on the property. We had fox babies at one point I got pictures of. And fox can scream and sound like a person. So it wasn't, like I said, it startled me when it happened, but I was immediately like, nope, that was a fox. So the EVP, the fact that it's the same voice I could hear sometimes when I fell asleep, and once heard the negative of, which was one of the weirder things that happened to me. Like I heard the absence of sound. It was like listening to a negative sound. Oh. Like I have no better way of describing it. It was like as if the thing was so low that I could feel it but not hear it. Oh, interesting. And it really freaked me out. I was like, what the hell? Like, how was that even a thing? What really I'm really struck by here, man, is, I mentioned this to you several times as I'm reading your book, which is real. I verify this again. I'm not being paid or coerced into saying this. But there's a number of parallels between our lives, which I find fascinating. And I won't spoil it here because obviously we want folks to read the book, but there have been a number of things so far where they're just kind of startling parallels between our lives. And of course, we didn't meet each other until January 2024, thereabouts. But I have also experienced this mumbling you're talking about. Really? Yeah. It happened here. Well, again, back in the old office, in the old haunted office building. I was
on the phone with a friend of mine, and because I used to manage this consulting company, everyone really kind of telecommuted, so I used to have this huge office all to myself, like about 1,600 square feet, and it was real stinking haunted, and sometimes it was quite aggressively so. Like most of the time, it was just kind of it was weird, but there were some times in the building, whatever was passing through was very, very unhappy, and the building didn't like when you talked about it. Whatever was in there didn't like when you talked about it. And I was telling my friend this, and it proved it, because we were having this conversation. I was talking on my cell phone. Everything was fine. We talked for an hour. Everything was fine. And then I started telling him about some of the stuff that had happened in the building, because he loves spooky stories. And we started losing connection. We started getting this snow washing across the recording. And so I would go outside. If I stepped outside talking about spooky stuff, totally fine. Step back inside talking about spooky stuff, we start to lose it again. Step back inside talking about normal stuff, stays connected. So it was very clearly sensitive to the topic. And then finally, I thought, well, the heck with it. I'm not going back outside. It's starting to rain. And the snow started rising. And then I started hearing it. I thought it was my cousin's voice on the other end distorting. It was talking like you're describing, like, just like that. And it was kind of eerie. So I hung up, I called him back, and he goes, hey man, I couldn't hear you at the end. What were you saying? And I told him, man, I thought that was you. And it wasn't either of us. But what makes it even stranger is late that night, another friend and I were out tooling around town, just driving around. And he for whatever reason, he was thinking about buying a new car. He couldn't afford one, but he wanted to look at one. So we drove to some car lot at 2 a.m, and he was looking at this car. And then we got back in, and as we were driving around more, because we were at the time listening to the police scanner. And so I told him the story that I just told you. And right in the middle of a call, of dispatch responding to something on the scanner, it cut out. This woman's voice, dispatch, number 325, respond to whatever, cut out. And this deep, booming laugh came out over the police band, going, and then, boom, the dispatch cut right back in. No one commented on it whatsoever.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the only thing I think when I've mentioned this before, people have compared it to the Bigfoot phenomena of samurai chatter.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Which I don't know. I mean, I think I listened to the clips people had of it, but again, it sounds like it's sort of unintelligible. But to me, I wouldn't have described this as samurai chatter. Like it was so when I play that EVP, people can either hear it or they don't, because it was very low in the recording. And I remember playing it for a friend of mine, and he's just like, he almost jumped away from it when it started. He was like, whoa, okay, I got chills. Don't do that to me. Don't play that one for me again. But other times I play it and you can barely hear it. And I'm like, why is it more, and I know a decent amount about sound. So like I cleaned it up so it's more noticeable, but it's definitely not just noise. It's a distinctive voice.
Yeah, and that's what this was like. It was definitely communicating something. I just couldn't. It was like a long time ago, a friend of mine lost a dear friend, and he was missing him so badly that he had a dream in which he called him. And I feel comfortable saying this because I don't think he's ever going to listen to this, but I think he actually managed to reach him because in the dream, he calls his friend. He's missing him so bad, he calls his friend. And he gets his friend, but his voice he sounds like it's low and confused. Huh. And it's almost like, because his friend died very suddenly, he was a very healthy young man, and then just, something, I think it was an aneurysm, just took him in seconds.
That'll do it.
And so it was almost like he reached his he reached his friend, but his friend was still so, disoriented that he couldn't properly communicate.
Huh.
Yeah.
For some reason, that reminds me of the Jeff Ritzmann dream I had, but that wasn't so much so I've mentioned it before, but I had this dream because I never got to meet Jeff Ritzmann. We talked a lot, but every time we made plans to do something, I never got to meet him in person. So I had this dream. I'm at his house. There's a whole bunch of people there. It's actually kind of annoying me. I'm like, oh man, maybe I should go home. There's too much going on, too many people here. And I walked out on his back porch. Now, I have no idea if he had a back porch or not, but in the dream, he had a back porch. And I walked out, and I suddenly realized, oh, I'm dreaming. Okay. And he walks out, and I look over at him, and I go, man, I really wish I got to meet you in real life. And all of a sudden, everything shifted. And he goes, well, why do you think you're here?
Oh, wow.
And that woke me up. And I was like, okay, that was weird.
Yeah.
Because it went from this is Dream Jeff to this is something talking to me. Whether or not it was Jeff, I don't know.
Of course. But interesting. See, it's almost like opening up just up to that much is kind of like allowed whatever it was to take place.
Yeah, yeah. The fact that I think I realized I was dreaming. I mean, I've had those things happen with my mom where like don't realize I'm dreaming. My mom's there and suddenly I'm like, oh wait, you're dead. This is not real. But nothing shifts, it's still like she's just a dream character still.
Yeah. Interesting. So funny enough, I never, very rarely dream of my paternal grandmother. She died when I was 14. I think I actually talked about this on the dream show we did. But she died when I was 14. She went home one day. She used to babysit us, and then she just didn't come back the next day because she died of a heart attack. And for months after she left, I would have these dreams where she was. I'd be down in the basement on my computer, and I would hear her voice upstairs. But by the time I got upstairs, she was gone. And then finally, one night, I dreamed, and she was actually there. And I got up, she was there, and she hugged me, and she said goodbye. And then I never had that dream again. But I also didn't really dream of her. I've had other people in my family who've passed who I've seen periodically, and it's interesting because like sometimes, again, as I mentioned on the previous show, sometimes they have evolved. They don't look the way they used to, or they look like I'll meet them when they're younger. But with my grandmother, she always looks like her. She always looks like the way I remember her, just maybe younger. But also, we never talk. I always just see her from a distance. And it's funny that we're talking about this now because I just remembered about a week and a half ago, before I went back to Victoria, maybe 2 weeks ago now, I dreamed about her very briefly, and it just waved to each other, and that was it. But what's even more fascinating is I remember now too, Nikki, my wife, she told me about a dream where she met this woman. She described how she looked, and I said, "Oh, it sounds like my grandma Evelyn. You know who she is." And Nick's like, "No, you've never shown me a picture. You've talked about her. You've never shown me a picture." So we dug out a photo of my grandmother, and that is who she met in her dream, but she had no idea what she looked like, and she saw her, as I always do now, as a much younger woman.
Interesting.
Yeah. So she had no way of knowing what she looked like, because again, she had never seen a photo of her.
Right. Huh. Yeah, we will do a part 2 and probably a part 3 to that dream show.
Oh, I hope so. I've got so many more notes. Yeah, so many more notes.
Maybe more than a 3-part.
Maybe. Well, I started doing Jungian meditation, and that's kind of juiced my dream life as well a little bit.
Really? What are you doing?
So basically, I just kind of relax into a calm state, and then the instructional thing I found was basically to imagine digging. So imagine like being in your backyard or somewhere comfortable. So I always imagine my mother's backyard, and you imagine digging. Imagine like very realistically the sound of the spade going into the earth or whatever it is you're digging with, and then you just make note of the things you find as you dig. And yeah, it's been really, really, really interesting. And actually, I was sort of hitting sort of reaching another plateau as far as my mental health goes, which is kind of how I got started doing this. And then in one of these meditations, I was digging, and the hole filled with blood.
Oh.
And a voice, and I felt my whole body getting tight. And then a voice said to me, "The ego needs to die for you to go further."
Interesting.
And so I used to microdose psilocybin. I credit that honestly with keeping me alive during the pandemic. It was kind of helped me neuroplasticity, whatever, my way out of some of the worst of my depression. And I still had some of the microdoses in the cupboard. So I started microdosing again every 3 or 4 days. And it was exactly the thing I needed to kind of help dissolve whatever block was in my way. Yeah. I've done a few of them now. I've actually got to get back into it now that I'm back in Ontario. But yeah, it was some really interesting, some really interesting stuff. Some of which has kind of found their way into Fear Daily stories, and some of which I think is just, I don't know, parts of my psyche that needed to be expressed or maybe even exercised in a way.
And I mean, the thing is, you're never going to completely get rid of your ego until you die.
Of course.
So, when people say, "I don't have an ego, I'm one with everything," it's like, no, you have a perspective in this universe. You have an ego.
Oh yeah, that's the what do they call that? Not a spirit trap. Maybe it's an ego trap. That's where you I'm so far beyond that. I don't have to worry about that. Like, no, you're deep in it, my guy.
Exactly. Crowley did that. In his autobiography, he starts talking about how he's completely dissolved his ego. It's like, no, you haven't.
Yeah. Wink.
And you definitely haven't.
Yeah, of all the people here, man, you have found your way out of that the least.
So I was looking through my notes real quick. July 19th, there was a fast beeping sound in my right ear while I was laying here partially awake. sounded like a whole bunch of times really, really quickly, no idea where it came from.
Interesting.
So it's not the only time that's happened, but that didn't sound like it was coming from the phone. That's what was different about this time versus the other times. I'm just trying to see if I can find anything else that was weird lately.
I've got one if you want
yeah,
some.
Go ahead.
So I went back to Victoria just because we were celebrating our 17th anniversary. For our folks who don't know, my wife and I live in Ontario, she lives in BC, and I go back and forth, which just because after the pandemic, I got so sick, I couldn't live on an island anymore. And she has a great job. We have a nice apartment, and she likes the island. So I kind of come and go. But so I went back to celebrate our 17th anniversary, and we decided we were going to take a nice trip to Vancouver. So we're going to splurge and have this really nice trip. We're going to take the float plane over from Victoria to Vancouver, stay at a reasonably nice hotel, not the nicest, but a reasonably nice hotel, and have a nice steak dinner and all this stuff. So we did that, had a wonderful time, and she always passes out earlier than I do. So after dinner, we stopped at this beast patisserie that's open late, got some snacks, went back to the hotel, had our snacks. She crashed out, and I went for a walk. Now, when I was younger, Vancouver was always the next step to me. It was like, I can't wait till I'm living in the big city. That'll mean I've made it. I'm living in the big city. And life just sort of conspired to make that. It didn't happen. And I always used to be kind of up in my feelings about that. I always like, that was a sign that, whatever, I didn't achieve the things I wanted to achieve. And as I was walking around the city that night, it was Friday, it was very busy. I was looking, and I started doing that thing that I do sometimes where you start looking at things and you remember what used to be there and you start kind of mythologizing that. You kind of, I'm a little bit given to nostalgia. I kind of have to watch for this in myself. And I was getting kind of down. So I was sitting on a low wall by the Burrard Street subway station, watching this rat gnaw on the garbage across the sidewalk from me. And I sat there for quite a while. And finally I thought, the heck with this. This is silly. I'm done. I'm going to go back to the hotel. We have a lovely hotel room. I'm just going to go, lay next to my beautiful wife and sleep. So as I started walking back, suddenly I was surprised by this voice. This guy's like, hey man, do you know where the nearest ATM machine is? I turned and looked. He looked like a well-dressed guy. Probably a skin full of booze in him, judging by how glassy his eyes were, but he was friendly. And I said, no man, I'm not from around here. I couldn't tell you. And he stops and he goes, oh, whereabouts in Ireland are you from? I said, I'm not from Ireland. And he laughs and he goes, no, really. It's okay. Tell me, where are you from? And I was completely caught flat-footed. I said, no, I'm not from Vancouver, man, but I'm from here. I was born like 7 hours that way. And he finally accepted it, but he goes, man, I was certain you're from Ireland. I thought, sure, okay. And I don't even remember how the conversation got beyond that point. I just don't recall what path it took, but I found myself walking for quite a ways with him back to his hotel. And he started unloading on me the story of how, when he was a little boy, he had a near-death experience. He told me that his father was a drinker and he would drive drunk with the kids in the car. And one time he was driving with his dad. His dad was going very, very, very fast, and he fell asleep. And this boy heard his grandmother's voice say to him, you have to punch your dad 3 times in the arm hard. And while you're doing that, you have to yell, break, break, break. And he said, as he heard this, it was like time slowed down. And then once she had communicated this to him, time sped back up. He punched his dad's arm 3 times, said, break, break, break. And they still crashed, but the speed they were going at, if his dad had not hit the brake, they would most assuredly have been killed.
Wow.
And he was able to slow down enough to that they survived. And he told me he'd never been able to tell his family this because they were not that way inclined. They just were not interested in these kinds of things. So he'd always just kind of sat with this. I might even have been the first person he told. I'm not sure. And we kept walking. And then he started telling me about his shadow people experiences. Now, he didn't have the vocabulary to describe them as that. But when he was deep into his cocaine addiction, he would wake up to find this thing crouched next to his bed. And he said he felt like it was trying to suck him in. Almost like an old hag experience, but it was sort of more of like a shadow entity, a shadow form. It wasn't quite human, but it wasn't quite animal, but it was like drawing his life force in towards it. He said it was almost like Evil Dead when his face gets sucked into the thing.
Oh yeah.
And it kind of elongates his face. He didn't use that example, but that's what he was describing. Like it was like sucking his face downwards towards it, and it was like his life energy was going with it. He said this is something he would experience again, fairly regularly after a while after he'd kind of started really sinking into his cocaine addiction, this started happening more often.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think he sort of surprised himself, I suspect, by telling me this, because what little, sort of clues I was able to get from him, he's a pretty successful guy. The hotel that I walked him back to was not a cheap hotel. It was certainly nicer than the hotel I was staying in. And at the end of it all, he said, man, I feel like the internet is kind of just trying to make me sad all the time. Because he said, I feel okay, and then I go on the internet and I get so mad and sad. I was like, yeah, man, you're not wrong. I don't know what to tell you. That's what the whole machine's built to do these days, my guy.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah. And then he said, he shook my hand and he said, can I have a hug? I was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. So I gave him a hug, and then he went his way, I went mine, and that was it.
Oh.
Just had 2 ships in the night. And I don't know if he ever found his ATM, but again, I got him back to his hotel, and I told him when he told me the story about the sleep paralysis, I mentioned that I worked with a woman whose entire family had that experience. Especially her dad, she knew it was happening because he had a particular cry that he would make in his sleep when it was happening. And she herself knew when she was about to experience it, because as she was falling asleep, there was a particular sensation she would get. And as she described it, that's how she knew they were coming.
Interesting.
She actually, I never got much information about it because she didn't want to talk about it.
Right.
She actually was really uncomfortable talking about it because she said to talk about it was sometimes to sort of summon them. And she really didn't want to do that.
All right, we got to take a break. We'll be right back. All right, quick mid-show break here. Some contact info and a recommendation. Contact info is simple. wheredidtheroadgo.com. There you can find links to all of our social media, ways to donate. You can find info on the show. You can find old shows going all the way back to the very first one. I am trying to populate the RSS feed with old shows. So my plan currently is to put the new show out on Monday and a show from 2014 out on Thursday. I don't think everyone realizes the Thursday show is a show from 11 plus years ago. But that is what I'm doing, just so they fill out the feed a little bit. You can become a patron. It's only $3 a month. You get extra content with pretty much every show. Sometimes the extra content's even longer than the show. Plus, we go a little deeper usually in the Patreon. As well, you get the shows a couple of weeks early. You get them commercial free, and it helps me out in continuing this show. So if you like it, that is the best way to support. It's only $3. It's always been $3. I've never raised the price. I want people to get the content. And if you can't support us that way, leave us a good review. Recommend us to your friends. Everything helps. There's also a link tree there, which will take you to all of my other projects, like The Last Exit of the Lost, or if you want to look through some of my photography, there's links on there, plus to like my personal Facebook and things like that. As for a recommendation, I have 1.5 recommendations, I guess. The first one is a podcast I just found called The Void. It's done by Still Good Creative. I guess I'll just read the synopsis here. What do you know about the dark? When you look into the shadows, you feel them watching back? In the town of Milton, the darkness isn't just in your head. It lives in the woods. They call it the Void, a cursed expanse that surrounds town, swallowing anyone who dares to leave. At the center of the fear lurks the Hat Man, a figure of nightmares, or perhaps something worse. Sam, a restless teenager trapped by the forest and his addict father, is desperate for a way out when an eccentric old man hands him a strange pamphlet, a whispered promise of a path through the void. Sam and his friends begin a harrowing journey that will change everything they thought they knew about their town, their families, and themselves. It's fairly good. Some of the voice acting's a little flat. You can tell they're reading at parts, but the main character's pretty decent. They have a handful of episodes up at this point. They're up to 13, and that just came out a few days ago, November 3rd. So The Void is my recommendation. It definitely has, it borrows from a lot of stuff. There's a bridge collapse right at the beginning, a Mothman sighting on the bridge, but it's not pulling from Fort Tiana in a direct way. It's just using some of the imagery like the Hat Man and stuff. It's an enjoyable listen so far. It's not like the best podcast I've ever heard, but it has a lot of promise, and it's definitely worth checking out if you like creepy audio fiction. I will also recommend that you check out the Paratopia Halloween special on the Our Undoing radio feed that Jeremy Ravaney runs. He had a few guests on for this, what he called the final episode of Paratopia, since it hasn't been a show since Jeff died. I think we did one. I know I was on the first one he did after Jeff died as a memorial to Jeff. And this kind of is too. He has Tyler Kochjon on, a ghost hunter I wasn't familiar with, and Cody Ritzman, Jeff's son, who I've never heard from, and I've always wondered how he was doing, and he gets into a lot of that stuff. It's a little bit emotional, but it's also really interesting. So, yeah, that's on the Our Undoing radio feed. If you're a fan of Jeff Ritzman, I suggest checking it out because, yeah, Cody had some really interesting stuff to talk about. And he went through a really rough time losing both of his parents in such a short span of time. All right, back to the show. So I'm here with Brennan Store, and yeah, that was a weird story, Brennan.
At Vancouver, man, it's always something always weird happens there. I mean, that's where I had my shaman experience.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
This was actually only a few blocks away from that.
I was just flipping through some of my notes. Back from May 21st, I just casually wrote poltergeist stuff. The phone flipping off the desk, noises in a customer's garage I couldn't find, which turned out to be birds. I did figure that one out.
Okay.
And weird noises on my porch whenever I stepped out there. I'd walk out there, and there were just like these weird snapping noises. And I was like, okay. And then I'd walk off the porch, and it would stop. And it wasn't from like under me where I was standing. It was like up in the right corner of the room. And I was just like, I have no idea what's causing that. And then I said electronics being weird, which also connects to something else that I'm not going to get into right now. But the one that I may have mentioned this before, but it still kind of freaks me out, and I don't totally remember it. I said, a knock on the inside of my eyelids woke me up. That sounds weird. That sounds weird, and I don't remember what happened. I guess it is what it is.
Yeah, I remember we talked about that because I mentioned that when I used to do the, what do you call it, the sensory deprivation chamber, I would hear knocking.
Yeah.
Even though theoretically I should not have been able to hear anything.
Knocking is very common here, and it's in the last week been very loud on the outside of the house where I'm just sitting there and I'll hear bang. And I'm like, okay, what's that? Because I do have a walnut tree outside, just outside the back room. But the walnuts, most of them have already fallen. But even if they were falling, the tree isn't bigger than the house. And this is hitting like the roof and the upper part of the house and hitting on the side where there is no walnut tree. And I'll go outside and I can't find anything. And I'm just like, all right, that's a thing, you know.
Just roll with it.
I actually, earlier today, I have no idea what this was. I heard this whistle that started off really high and then just kept dropping, like something winding down.
Oh.
And I'm like, the hell is that? Like, it was a worrisome sound. It wasn't a sound that inspired any kind of like comfort. It was like,
yeah,
it sounds like something like a bomb dropping or like something winding down and about to blow up, you know? And like, I'm like, is it coming from outside? Because the room was quiet and I could hear it really loud at first. I'm like, I think it's coming from outside. So I walked outside and it was dark and I could hear it. And then it hit it got to whatever low pitch it was. And it just stayed constant. And I'm like, oh, there's nothing else I could do with this. I'm just going to go back inside. Like, it's not changing. I can't tell which direction it's coming from. It just seems to be everywhere. Maybe someone was running a tractor or something that did something weird and was making that noise. I have no idea. So it's one of those, could have been paranormal. Also may not have been paranormal, but I've never heard it before.
It reminds me of, and again, I might have mentioned this on the show before, but I remember reading the book, I want to say Sleep Intrusions or Nocturnal Intrusions, things by Louis Proud.
Oh yeah, Louis. Yeah, that was his first book.
Yeah, by Louis. Yeah. And he mentions in there about one of the sounds that sometimes people will hear as they're going into these experiences is like a drill, like a dentist drill almost.
Yep.
And one time when I placed a call from the office, Skype call actually to one of the other consultants who was working from his home office. When the call connected, there was a sound of a drill, and I said, "Oh, you guys are getting some work done." And he said, "Oh, I thought that was your side." But it was a drill. It was definitely the sound of a drill.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what would cause that.
No, and again, this was like Skype, this is 10, 12 years ago too. So, I mean,
yeah,
it was just a wired headset and Skype. And we both heard it. And I'd never had that happen before or since.
There's like weird beeps or something. Okay, you can chalk that up to some, but a drill sound is not a typical electronic malfunction sound.
No, that's it.
Huh. Yeah, weird. I mean, Tim Renner said at one point, when he was having a lot of weird experiences before he was doing, Strange Familiars and all that, he had a recorder and he put it under his bed. And when he woke up and played it back, there was all kinds of noises on it, like tones, like electronic tones, and there was nothing in the room that could create electronic tones.
Interesting.
And it freaked him out. So I think he was using a cassette recorder, and it freaked him out so bad he destroyed it. He destroyed the tape.
Really?
Yeah. And now he's like, I wish I had it. He's like, but at the time, I wished I didn't have it, so I got rid of it.
No, that's fair. I mean, I would have had I can't imagine the reaction I would have had to that either. Tim's had such an interesting life. He's quite the guy.
Oh yeah. And he's had quite the journey too. So it's I don't know what the tone thing is. Would people have heard that pre digital technology? And
that's a great question.
If they did, how would they describe it? Because we can describe it as, well, it sounds like a video game tone or like even an old phone, like a boop, 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 boop type of thing. But if you're talking the 1920s or something, if someone hears something like that, how do they describe it?
Sounds like Satan.
Because you don't have digital we don't really think about it, but digital is fairly new. Those tones and stuff, really from maybe the 60s or 70s on is where you're hearing those tones. So I'm sure people had this experience, but did they hear tones or did they hear something else? Did they just describe them as beeps? But also thinking about that, again, the beep, how many things in nature beep? Yeah,
that I genuinely have no idea, but I'm actually just looking up to see the origin. So yeah, the word itself, beep, originated in 1927.
Okay. What did it relate to?
It was an imitation of automobile horns.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, this is Etymology Online. 1927, imitative of automobile horns, originally of the sound of a certain type of automobile horn, one among several in the years after the klaxon horn was brought into use in 1910. Used as a noun and a verb by 1929. Okay.
But that's also not an electronic beep. That's more of a wah.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how to research those type of accounts because I don't know how people would describe it.
See, that's it. Odds are you could be reading their description of it and not know that's what they were hearing.
Yeah. If they were hearing it, maybe that's a cultural thing. Maybe whatever it is, we're interpreting it and it's coming out as a beep to us, but to someone in 1890 or something, it would have sounded like a completely different thing from the same phenomena.
I got to say, I do love the idea of you going back in time to play an Atari 2600 in front of someone and going, is this what it sounded like? And they're just really busy. They're just too busy burning you at the stake as a witch.
Or just bring a cell phone.
Then they should burn you as a witch at that point.
Oh man. That's the analogy too of us trying to backwards engineer alien aircraft, right? It would be like giving someone in the year 100 a cell phone. They can take it apart, but they're not really going to figure out how it works or be able to replicate it no matter how smart they are. Because it's just, there's too many steps between them and us.
I mean, as intelligent as I like to think I am, even I have to admit that you could disassemble a cell phone in front of me, and I couldn't do much with it except try and chew on it.
Well, you can at least try to put it back together.
I guess, yeah, depending on how much you took it apart.
But we don't, I don't understand how to make transistors work. Nope. All the little things that have to go in a cell phone to make it work, you're not going to be able to figure out just by looking at it.
No, that's it.
You literally need that step-by-step, movement to understand each part that eventually became cell phones and computers and things like that. Without that, you're not going to be able to just backwards engineer it just because someone handed you something. Which is, again, what I'm saying, my issue with, these extraterrestrials crashed here and we're backwards engineering their stuff. Okay, if someone could fly here from another planet, they are way ahead of us. We can't even leave the planet. So it's about the equivalent of giving someone in the year 100 a cell phone.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know enough about technology to say one way or the other. I'm willing to give someone like a high-end engineer the grace of being able to look at something and go, well, maybe I can figure some of this out. Maybe not all of it, but some of it. Certainly I couldn't. I could barely reverse engineer a hoagie. But, I'm willing to be like, yeah, maybe someone who's really intelligent, who's like an engineer of some kind, maybe they could figure out something. Maybe. I don't know that that's necessarily out of the realm of possibility.
Maybe Nikola Tesla.
Maybe, yeah.
But my point though is I think there's going to be, we might be able to figure something out, but we're not going to understand how it works because there's too many steps between them and us. Like, too many little steps and details that we simply don't even understand the concept behind.
Or it may be that we figure out we are able to look at what they've done and kind of come up with something based on our understanding of what it is.
That's possible.
Yeah. But maybe we won't be able to replicate whatever it is they've done. And I mean, hey, this is why you should invest in education, folks. We need to have folks who understand how things work.
This is true. But this also reminds me of the whole drone thing that just came out.
Drone thing.
Yeah. So you remember the drones over New Jersey?
Okay. Yeah.
So there was just Coast to Coast actually posted this. These swarms of unidentified aircraft over New Jersey late last year were classified tests approved by the military, according to a leak from an elite tech summit. A protected source told the New York Post how one contractor claimed responsibility for the mysterious flying objects, which baffled Garden State residents in November of 2024. You remember the big UFO scare in New Jersey last year? Well, that was us, an employee of the contractor allegedly said. The Army UAS and Launched Effects Summit is an exclusive gathering of the military's top brass and the nation's best private contractors. During the event, an unnamed contractor also demonstrated a manned aerial craft with a unique design that makes it difficult to detect from certain angles. This potentially explains why so many reported New Jersey UFOs vanished suddenly while zipping across the sky. Although the alleged admission answers some questions, it raises several others, such as why the scale of the test was so large and why there was an utter lack of transparency that confused even the state's top lawmakers and the FBI. The densely populated test also has some wondering about the purpose of these exercises.
I don't know, man. That has real big, my girlfriend lives in Canada, you don't know her energy. You know those drones? That was us. No further questions, please.
Well, they may have answered further questions, but doesn't mean it was leaked to us. But that's the thing. So there's not a lot of detail here. We don't know who said it. We don't, because it was leaked, which means it could be true. It could not. It may be completely fabricated. There's no way to know without more information. It's not. I don't think that what he's saying there is outside the realm of possibility.
No, it's not outside the realm. I mean, certainly, yeah, you can't rule it out.
And there are plenty of corporations who, they're saying like, oh, the FBI didn't know. Well, the FBI doesn't know everything that's going on. They may have cleared it with somebody else and told the FBI stand down. What the FBI says to us isn't what they, necessarily know. There's so many ifs that it's hard to kind of dig through that data. This was in the New York Post, by the way.
And the Post, sometimes has a fractious relationship with the truth.
Well, all media does at this point.
Yeah, true enough. But I think it bears repeating.
Yes, yeah, the Post is especially bad with it sometimes. But I wouldn't be shocked at all if the actual drone sightings were some kind of corporation testing, maybe seeing what kind of response they got, what people were reporting, how they reacted to it, etc.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, when you're talking about sort of these nebulous like corporations or government agencies, you have to leave room for their presence and for them, kind of doing things. I mean, I seem to recall you guys on an episode, I think it might have been one that Saxon, maybe RPJ were on, I'm not totally sure, but Saxon was kind of saying that, well, some of these things that they're talking about these are just airplanes.
Yes, yeah.
And it's sort of the scale of this was kind of widely overstated.
Yeah. He pointed out, being a pilot, among other things, he was very, he was watching a news report and, they're like, oh, there was one right behind us. And he's like, that was a plane. He's like, it was literally a plane and it was right by an airport, and planes can look weird sometimes. He's like, and I think part of it is a lot of people just don't look up most of the time. So now when you have a drone thing going on, people are looking up and they're seeing planes and they're going, well, that doesn't look like a plane to me because you're never looking up. I look up a lot. I see lots of planes.
And some folks, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about UFOs or other facets of the paranormal, some folks need to believe.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
They need to have had an experience, So it doesn't matter whether it's realistic or not. It's like, well, I need to have been able to say I had this.
Yes, that's true. But misidentifications are easy.
Sure. I don't think it's always malicious. I think these people genuinely think they had that experience, but I think they had to fudge a lot of details whether or not they were aware of it in order to arrive at that conclusion.
There were numerous times I've caught things like on dash cam and stuff. One of them was definitely weird, but again, could have been something man-made. It's just that it was cloudy, and when I was driving, it was so bright. I was like, what is that? And then it just blinked out. And I was like, okay, that was weird. Because even with the clouds, it shouldn't have blinked out. It should have kind of, went behind the clouds where you see it kind of like falter and then disappear or whatever. It didn't have the lights of a plane. It was a single bright white light. When I pulled it up on the dash cam, it's nowhere near as bright, but it does just sit in a single place. It never moves. It pops into existence, sits there for maybe a minute, and then just poof, gone. And I sent that to Saxon, and I said, is this a plane? He goes, I don't think so. He's like, I'm not sure what that is.
Interesting.
Where there was a couple others that I had gotten on the rear cam, because it's actually outside the car, so it gets an even clearer thing. And I'm like, this light is weird. And he's like, it does look weird. He goes, but I think that's a drone. And then he starts looking at the area. He's like, where'd you see it? And I'm like, here. He goes, well, that's where your old military base was. It's not a military base anymore, but he's like, it's entirely possible someone's flying drones out of that area because it's, a big open area. And sure enough, a few weeks later, I'm driving past that military base and I see a drone come out over the road and then go back in there.
Oh, interesting.
So it's like, okay, I mean, it doesn't even mean it was military necessarily, but, obviously it was a good place to fly that stuff out of. So I was like, okay, well, that kind of explains that light. But the other one, I don't know. And drones look weird sometimes. I've seen numerous times where I've startled. I'm like, whoa, that's weird. Oh, that's a drone. Okay.
Yeah.
Tim had an interesting story at Site 7 where they saw a drone. And it was weird because it was down like under the tree line. And then they ran into people and immediately were like, oh, these must be the people who had the drone. And they asked them and they went, no, we thought that was you.
Interesting.
So at that point, it's like, again, you have to also accept the fact that some of this stuff masquerades as stuff that it's not.
Oh, sure, 100%.
So, I mean, the car driving down the road the other way may not be really a car. It might be something else, but you would never know. John Keel has numerous reports of like people seeing airplanes making no noise, flying really slow and really low to the ground, but they look for all the world like a regular airplane.
I had someone contact me after the first edition of the book came out from Revelstoke. They had seen what they thought was a helicopter, except it was wreathed in green smoke and it was not moving the trees.
Huh.
And it was surrounded by trees, but it wasn't moving them.
Right, which a helicopter certainly would.
It absolutely would, yeah. And then after, as I recall, it then just kind of zoomed off in a manner that helicopters do not do.
It behaved unlike a helicopter by zooming off.
Behaved in a markedly unhelicopter-like fashion. Actually, another thing that came into my, sort of popped up on my radar in middle of September, I just went and found it. I had a text from my wife. She was talking to one of the women at the office. And I have a photo here. In the photo, it looks like a bird, but the photo's taken with a cell phone from a great distance. So, you can't really tell. But her coworker said she saw this over Panama Flats, which is sort of a marshy area in north of downtown in Victoria in 2021. This woman saw it and she said it was not a bird or a plane. And she's certain of that because it was two objects flying independently, which then merged into one.
Oh,
yeah.
That's always interesting.
Yeah, no noise. It didn't swoop or soar. It always moved in straight lines.
Huh.
I'll send you the image over Facebook and you can have a peek. I don't know if you want to pop it in the show notes or whatever, but it's kind of odd.
Yeah, it's so hard to sort out what's the weird. I mean, because I think there's this I don't think there's a distinct separation from weird and normal. So there's overlaps. Weird stuff may use normal stuff to sort of like interact with us. Or
sure. I mean, I think ultimately it's got to come from the same place.
Right. But it's like a spectrum of like, how weird is this until you get to the really weird stuff, but it's not, I don't know if I'm expressing that right. Like things like two things joining together don't normally happen. So it might look like a normal thing until it joins together. And then you're like, well, birds don't do that, Yeah.
Well, it's like we were talking about with the woman behind me, like to Paul, it's just a woman walking behind me. There's nothing strange about that. She wasn't ethereal. She wasn't spooky. He just thought I had a woman over in my house for some reason.
Right. Yeah. This picture you sent me does look like a bird.
Yeah. But again, there was no one in my house. So all of a sudden in the context, that makes no sense whatsoever.
Huh.
I actually think that one of the things we are unaware, and I just don't think we'll ever be able to comprehend this, but I do think that we regularly see things not from this, whether you want to call it dimension or plane or whatever. I almost wonder if sometimes it's done like a traffic system. Because, traffic systems are quite complex, and, the lights sometimes will try and, what's what I'm looking for, channel traffic in such a way as to keep the flow of traffic moving, right? And obviously sometimes it gets overloaded and you get into traffic jams that can't be helped. But the function of an infrastructure system like that is to keep traffic flowing as best as possible. And again, that means channeling it certain ways. And I sometimes wonder if we're not surrounded by people and places not of the same dimension or whatever as us, but because the great system just keeps things flowing, we have no way of knowing. The person next to you, maybe they're driving from 1999, but they're not paying attention. Right. And to them, well, whatever, I'm just driving to work. And so the great universe has shunted them through this particular stretch of road, this particular stretch of reality. And again, because no one's really looking around all that much, you just don't notice.
It's entirely possible. We could be surrounded by unknown things without realizing it. I've had a number of people who are sensitive to stuff tell me that they didn't realize that they were seeing people that other people didn't see.
Yeah. The very first, or the only time I stayed in Lizzie Borden house, I met that shaman dude, or not shaman. He was just a dude, but he was psychic, and he saw a kid run out of the bed, the top floor bedroom, the attic bedroom, and to him he thought it was a kid. Then he went, "Oh no, that is not a live person." But he did first. It was just a guy.
Yeah, exactly. We're out of time.
Oh, that went fast.
Yeah, we can do a Patreon, but tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, I'm largely the truth on all the social media places, Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, and if you're a movie nerd like me, you can follow me on Letterboxd. And you can also listen to my show, The Ghost Story Guys, where I talk about all things paranormal with Paul Bestel. We tell stories. Find that everywhere podcasts live or on YouTube. And my horror fiction show, Fear Daily, which I co-write with Brandon Scheck-Snyder. You can find that also everywhere you stream your podcast.
All right. Thanks, Brennan.
Hey, thank you.
I want to take a moment here to thank all of my Patreons. Because of you, this show still survives. And it is because of you that I intend to keep going with it. So I want to give a special shout out to those of you who are pledging $10 or more. Greg Ross, Cherry Trapezoid, Tactical Therapist, John Blackburn, Matt in Delaware, Mark Smith, Madeline J., Marty Garza, Gantic, Allison Cook, Super Inframan, 36 Dingo, Trin, Giotto, Sean Cosgrove, Tim, Matthew Sproul, Ruth Fortescue, Andrew Nichols, Martha, Tyler Glimstead, Christine, Mothman Bren, Mark Brady, D. Esme, Patricia Gaia-Quinta, Kevin Schreck, Linz Jackson K, Charles in Florida, Land of the Crazy and Communicable, Charles Davis, Kristen L, Automaton, Riker and Stark, Abby Allen, Bright Rectangle, Eric Citron, Kevin, American Rambler, Sam Sharon, Tyler Bell, Thunderboy, Eric Todd, Ann Witowski, Vincent Trewell, Will Powell, Barbara Fisher, Schmooples, Devourer of Mortal Souls, Jay, MTK, History and Coffee, Diane B, Beverly Williamson, Jim and Sophie, Andrew Maines, Jonathan Frost, Victoria, John Bracken, Paul Jeffries, Janet's Planet, Ron Dupre, Laser Printer Jam, Perry Peters, Varosh K, MJ Armstrong, Jack Huntington, Laura McLean, Stacy Sherwood, James Lindsay, Linda from Michigan, Billuminati, Strange Stories with the Seeker and Skeptic podcast, Mark Shoemaker, Ron Dupre, Will Cherry, Seed Person, The Ghost Story Guys, Liam Huddock, Harold, Annabelle Smith, Caroline Walker, TDT Skunkworks, Craig Sagastumi, Colin Karras, and Matthew Brown. Thank you all so very, very much for the support. So there's a lengthy Patreon segment for this show. If you enjoyed what you heard, listen to Brennan and I talk some more on Patreon. It's only $3 a month, and it gets you extra stuff pretty much every show, and bonus stuff on top of that, as well as the shows a couple weeks early and commercial free. So it's well worth your $3 if you like what you're hearing. I want to welcome Andrew Malone to the Patreon. I hope you enjoy what you find. See you next time. You have been listening to Where Did the Road Go? This show is brought to you in part by our Patreons. You can find more at www.wheredidtheroadgo.com. Website designed by John Tudor. The intro for this show was reimagined by Andrew Ham, aka Lord Happis on Spotify, and the voice is Psyche Kamir of Psyche Corporation. Artwork for the show designed by Timothy Renner, Jeff Ritzman, and Nadim Mahibahi. General inquiries, comments, etc. can be directed to contact at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Thank you all for listening and for all the support. www.wheredidtheroadgo.com.